Hey folks, welcome back. So some people want to know how I actually built these grid patches here. And it looks like super complex, but it's actually not. It's just multiple instruments in here playing different sequences, and some of these instruments have also some audio effects on it, like reverb or delays and so on. And it gets pretty complicated very fast. And it looks even more complex because I'm just taking these modules here in the end and just putting them closer together so they look like this compact square form here just for the video. But it looks more complex than it actually is. And some people want me to dissect this and say, oh, this is actually doing this and this is doing that. And it's, even for me, it's not easy to do because I don't, some of these modules are, you know, are cross-referenced across the whole patch. So it's not easy to read, more or less. It's just made compact for the video. But there's also something like, let's use something different. I made something that is more like, let me open this up here, generative party time. Yeah, this is more like a techno tune here. And here you can see it more clearly. We have here the kick drum, we have here a bass sound, arp, and some hi-hats and an additional sound sequence, whatever. And you can see it more clearly what happens here because it's more spread out. But I can also here, you know, take this and move this closer together and it looks more complex than it actually is. But what I want to do in this video is I want to create something from scratch and just to take you on the journey here, what I do. But it's very straightforward actually. What I need here is a polygrid. So it starts with this, right? And what we need to do is we need to put this here, of course, into voices mono mode. So we have one active voice. And so if this is on mono, we have one active voice, and this grid patch runs for itself. So you don't need to press a key on the keyboard to activate actually one voice. Voice stacking is off. Device phase here is exactly 1 bar, which is okay. So we want to start here by creating a kick drum, right? So we can do this by starting pretty simple. We can use maybe a segments, not a curve, a segments amplitude here, or envelope, amplitude envelope. And we want to put this here on 1 shot, and we want to say this kick drum is probably 1/16 note long. So in this mode here, 1/16 note, right? This thing from here to here is basically exactly 1/16 note long. So it depends also on the BPM, right? So 125 BPM, this is a different size than on 120 or 130 and so on. But here we have timing, and we can say this is my kick drum. So maybe we use this here for the volume shape instead of using this like this. And we want to use pitch input. So we want to say our kick drum ends are on maybe G0. And then we can start and trigger this already. So four triggers for each bar, which is exactly 4 to the floor. And we have already some kind of kick drum here. It's not the best kick drum so far, but it can hear it, how it ends up. Okay, so now we need a pitch envelope. We can just duplicate this here. We also want to trigger this, of course. And here we need something different. We want to have a high pitch here, and then we come down to the lowest, which is then G0. And what I do sometimes, you can just put this here into the phase modulation thing, right? And you get something like a pitch envelope. What I like to do is I don't care so much for having a phase consistency. I'm just I care for that the kick drum actually sounds good in the first place. So I'm using add here. So I'm using the pitch signal here, which is on G0. goes into the sine, and the sine wave of course plays G0. But then I add here my segments thing, and this should sound like this. So what I know or can hear already is that the pitch in here is maybe too fast, right? And that's the problem with using this for the pitch envelope. The best sounding kick drums sound like when you have this here on the edges, right? Which is not really what I like. So what you can do there is you can use a bend here. So you can scale this kind of curve already, and it's more like this when you have this on, right? So you can scale it in a different way, so you don't need to go here to the corners to get the right pitch. So this already sounds a bit better. Maybe you can also put here some kind of wave shaper on that. So right, this here already sounds not good on the tail, but in the beginning on the attack phase. So we can maybe use this here already, make a modulation. So this is not only at the pitch, but when the pitch is high, we also have more wave shaping. It gives you maybe, a better sound. And maybe also replace this here for something else. Which gets a different sound. Rectifier, heat. That's okay. Or we can use a modulator output here and use the scaled curve instead of the real curve. Replace this again here with the push. Yeah, that's okay. So we already have here a nice kick drum. Pretty dope. So then we move on and maybe introduce here some heads. So we go for noise. And we can make it, I usually start simple always. We use here a second output. So you can see we don't use a mixer here. And the reason for that is I just want to keep it spread out and separate. Maybe in the end I do just a normal mixer and then combine everything into one output. But here for the moment I just use this. Right, so we have this. We can now go to 8. Or 16 notes. Maybe again. So we can pull this down and loud us. So now we want to modulate here the hi-hats. We want to have certain hi-hats longer and certain hi-hats shorter. So we can do this maybe here with the transport. So the transport also outputs here some kind of ramp. And we can say 16 notes and the length is 4 16 notes. So we have a repeating pattern going up over exactly 4 16 notes. So we can take this and modulate here the length of the decay. Right, something like this. So now the end is basically on the on the kick drum. So the highest point is on the kick drum, but I want the highest point to be the offset, so between the two kick drums, so I can offset this here. Right, so just with this offset we have now this peak here in the middle of two kick drums, which is kind of better for me. You can also maybe use here a bend to make this more. Maybe this is better. Yeah, this is better. And we want to maybe use an high pass on that. Let's try it out how this sounds. Or the other way around. Cool. Okay, let's make a clap sound. Maybe you can take here the same noise source and do the same thing. Let's use the transport here and audio out. I think I take 8 notes here. Yeah, it's not synchronized. And maybe also filter on that, peak filter. I really love the peak filter of the XP. Better groove. And maybe a high pass at the end. Okay, so we have already a nice small groove. And because the grid here also uses shuffle, we can bring in the global shuffle. Okay, so now we need the bass, and I start by using maybe a saw. And use some triggers here, maybe 2 triggers, 16 notes. And a clock quantizer just to make it simple, and a 3, and then using an AD. Audio out. And we need a pitch, maybe also an output gain. So maybe I just use here some pitches. Something like this. Maybe put it an octave lower. And maybe a low pass. We'll use the cell and key filter. Maybe a different envelope. So what we can do now here is also to try and offset this pattern. So I start with just using the phase input here. Instead of using the pre-chord, I'm using here the connection. Then I'm using a shift and move this 50% to the right. This is here on C, maybe I want to go lower. And maybe we want to stick to A minor. And because we have the kick drum here, we have the real shape of the amplitude of the kick drums. We can just take here this automation output and just modulate the volume of the bass. Use a rectifier here, or a different kind of saturator. So what I can try now is to bring a bit more variety into the bass line here, to say use a transport, and transport puts out the phase over 2 bars. Oscilloscope. Right, instead of having here phase over 1. Can I change it? I can't change the output color. So it's a different length, more or less. So with this, I want to change the trigger speed, or maybe I use a bend. It could be also interesting to change the shift here back to 0. And here it's a completely different groove. So before, with is a bit long here. Maybe I use the kick drum also to duck the hi-hats. Not happy here with the curve. It's okay. So this is already a much better groove than before. We maybe need to add here some arps. So I do sine because it doesn't have too many overtones. And maybe we go here for the same, use the same thing. I'll use a pitch quantize. Pitch quantize is actually not needed if you want to, you know, go in here and paint the right notes, but I'm too lazy most of the time, so I'm just sticking here with the pitch quantize because it's just faster for me. Let's switch this off here, so when you hit the keyboard, it doesn't, you know, shift the pitch. Use an add here, and we do maybe the same trick here with this. Maybe it's kind of the same groove. We also have here a volume and output. Nice. Let's see how this sounds. We want to have this maybe an octave higher. Oh, we need to sample and hold. You can hear, right? The pitch is sometimes shifting. So it's a bit boring, so we need to add some delay, of course. Or maybe make it more interesting by using a second sine and make phase modulation. And maybe do the same trick here with this. No, that's not what we need. But here we go for 3 bars and change this up. Right, you can hear that the melody changes then after 2 bars. It gets a little bit different, so it doesn't sound like it's just 1 bar all the time looping. So we want to build a reverb, so we do some all-pass stuff here. Actually, it's just better to just use here 1 line, connecting these 2. We use a blend. Maybe a chorus. And more all pass. So this is basically here the reverb. Right, and then we do a delay, a mod delay. And we do a separate thing here. Here's a blend. Maybe a high pass in there. And I like that it switches basically one octave higher and then an octave lower. So we can use a latch here and say transport, give me a trigger every 4 bars, and then trigger here the middle thing, and the middle thing switches between 0 and 1. So 1 back to 0, 0 to 1. And every time we have a 1, we pitch it up here by 1 octave. Every time we have a 0, we are back to our original thing. So we switch every 4 bars 1 octave higher, and then we switch back 1 octave lower. Maybe switch this to a saw wave. And the filter on top. Whoops. And here the filter basically stays on C3 all the time, and we move up the filter when the envelope here is triggered. But sometimes I really like to have here this exactly on the pitch. So I can take here the pitch that we use to drive the oscillator and just put it also here on the filter, which means let's see here if we have a spectrum analyzer. I pull this down. 4.5, yeah, maybe resolution a bit higher, huge. So you can see we have here these fundamentals, right? And when I put this on the pitch of the oscillator, what this means is when this filter is at this position, we filter basically exactly all the overtones and just leave it with the fundamental. And you can see this also here, right? We only have the fundamentals. When we open up here the filter, we have all the harmonics. So the filter moves with the pitch. Which means we can open up or drive here more or less the resonance to get more of the fundamental. And it's more like a sine then. But I also want to open up the filter, so I do the same thing as with the kick drum here. I use an add and then put this here. And then we want to change, of course, how much you want to open up, so you can't use this anymore because it's needed for the pitch here. So we use an attenuator. Maybe here. So you can change here the filter amount. So we have basically pitch tracking of the filter, and we can open up the filter with an envelope at the same time without losing anything. But in my opinion, the amplitude envelope should always be a bit different than the filter envelope. So I'm using a separate thing. Just call it filter. This is amp. Maybe put just some kind of what's the name, squash, like an OTT peak limiter. It's okay. Maybe a clipper. And then you can place something on top, I don't know. Maybe use here let's transpose this 6 up. It doesn't fit, but you can place something on top to make it more interesting, so you don't need to do any or everything inside of the grid. But yeah, that's not what I want to show actually in this video. So what I do then most of the times, maybe we also should use here free run when stopped. Switch this off, so when we hit stop, it actually stops. Oh, there's a snare still playing. What's happening there? Oh, it's using here the transport. So maybe use their select maybe, or toggle. Or we use just the playback, transport playing, and select. Something like this. Okay, so when we play, actually kind of like it. So what I do then for the video, I try to find here certain things where I can move this closer together, right? So it makes more sense, or it looks cooler or more compact, so I can actually put it on the screen, because, you know, I have to scroll around here all the time, so it's not easy to film or easy to make a movie out of it. So just move this here a bit closer together. Maybe just remove this. And this is sometimes also art in itself, how to put this and to rearrange it in a certain way. And then it looks super complex and people are impressed, but it's not that impressive. It's just, it looks impressive most of the times. Maybe remove this here. Maybe put this here, this there. There's a bit of room. Oh, we have some delays here, so. Right, so it's more compact then. Whoops. There's something else? No, it's just that. So yeah, this takes a while sometimes to rearrange this in a certain way. I wish there would be, there were something like where I can hit or rearrange this in a certain way, right? So automatically rearrange it so it makes sense. But it's not there. But that's usually what I do then for the video. And when you have then a square, then it looks nice and you hit play. And even sometimes when I have these gaps in here, right, I just take something like an oscilloscope, which is not really needed, but it looks nice and it can fill up some space. And here you can switch this sometimes to fast. and then use the trigger here to trigger the oscilloscope. So you get each sound for each trigger. Yeah, and that's basically it. So I put this on my GitHub. I also rearranged this now for maybe 2 hours or maybe add something on top and save this preset, also put it on my GitHub, maybe make a video for the weekend on my other music channel. I also put you the link in the description below if you're not subscribed. So you can download this for free. I also made a video about my process. It's hopefully not too long. It's hopefully not too complex. This can get, you know, even more complex. You saw my other grids, and if I just, you know, put enough time in it, I can find a lot of ideas and certain sounds that play at certain times. But this is basically the process that I'm using for these type of grids. So it's not super complicated. It's just putting all my knowledge in there, how to make sounds, how to sequence, how to make audio effects, you know, how to tweak pitch signals and so on. So everything basically comes together. Also how to rearrange or how to arrange tracks, what's needed, when to put certain sounds in, how to EQ them. So everything basically comes together. So it's probably a bit of helpful if you already know how to make music than just starting with this. I would say modular is kind of easy to get into, but it's also hard to master. So yeah, that's probably my thinking about this. Anyway, that's it for this video. Leave a like, leave a subscription. Let me know what you think. Maybe you want me to elaborate more on certain things. Maybe you want to have longer videos about this. I don't know if this is maybe it's too boring for most of you. I have no idea. Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Have a nice weekend. Bye.